Hey everyone, welcome to the Hashrate podcast. I am the Bitcoin Broski, and today I am joined by a very special repeat guest. Last time this gentleman was on the show, we had an awesome conversation about OTC and his background and navigating these markets over the past few years. He's got a wide range of experience and comes from a traditional finance background. So I am excited to welcome back to the show SJ Oh from OSL. SJ, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me again. Great to be here.
Happy to have you. I mean, a lot's happened in the past few months. It's been exciting in crypto, in DeFi, in Bitcoin, in mining. I mean, there's a lot that we could talk about. One of the things that we'll discuss on today's show is you actually have a new venture, which you're able to discuss openly, and I'm excited to get into that. But just in general, man, what's been going on with you over the past few months since we talked last?
I was supposed to be in Singapore by now. That hasn't really happened because, for obvious reasons, they've just started processing the visas that were submitted, but were put on hold. So I think I'll be there by the end of this year. But otherwise, just business has been quite smooth. We had a record first half. Numbers are public as our company is listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and that's BC Tech. So 863HK is the ticker. That makes the track record 2.5 years now of PwC audited financials. And some validation, I think, that came through at the end of August. Knock on wood, we still have a lot of things to get done before we get the full rubber stamp. But as of now, we are the first and only company in Hong Kong to have received the AIP, which is short for Approval in Principle for the virtual asset trading license, which essentially gives us the Type 1, which is, I guess, in the US equivalent of a broker-dealer, and Type 7, which is an automated trading system service provider license. So those two, plus the right to issue a security. The way it sort of works is the SFC's purview is only sort of constrained around securities. So if you do not touch a security, they cannot regulate you. So it's sort of like us raising our hand and saying, hey, we're going to raise a security, come regulate us. And we've gone through all their hoops. It's good to go. It's been a long process, and once we get there, hopefully, knock on wood, we will be the only entity for the time being, I think, that will be able to face the licensed entities in Hong Kong. And yeah, it's quite excited. And I mean, only just today, they made another announcement making it a lot more easier for companies that are licensed with them to actually get involved in crypto without having to raise any sort of red tape, administrative costs whatsoever, up to 10% of their AUM. So I mean, it's coming real. The installs are coming through. I can see it.
That's awesome. That being said, what are you guys planning on doing with this? I mean, it sounds strange, right? For a company to be like, hey, regulators, look at me. What's the purpose?
Yeah, so I mean, the way we've sort of experienced the encounter, so like maybe to put it in context, I think while there have been a lot of guys trying to, I would say the majority of the players in the industry at this point are trying to play the game properly, i.e. above ground, regulated, facing just I mean, because you want to show that they're not really breaking any laws. The narrative of criminals, kidnappers, drug dealers, money launderers is not really true. But then on the other hand, there are people who do try to push that regulatory arbitrage. And I think that niche will continue to remain so because the libertarians and, the maxis, I mean, they will stick with those kind of outfits. But there is a segment that we have yet to see, and that's the professional money managers. I mean, as much as I would like to call GBTC's AUM professional money, it may be, but I mean, they're not really long something that's 22.5% premium, and same goes for their other products. And we are hearing like some of the bulge brackets, I'm not allowed to disclose the names, but they're starting to offer swaps on BTC CFDs. They're providing access onto CME futures. So it's coming real. And I think those entities that have yet to come through, the more traditional conservative fund managers are starting to come to light, and we will be able to face them because previously without this license, I mean, it was a box ticking exercise for these guys. If you don't have a license, they can't even talk to us. So just by having the approval in principle has opened so many doors, and we're starting to see the results. And it's a combination of just 2 years of pain, sweat, and tears. So quite happy about how it's turning out, really.
That's awesome. And there's been a lot of positive press for OSL. I mean, aside from this, over the past few months, you guys have really done a lot and made some huge strides forward. And I know that when you first got on my radar, was, I mean, really just through the OTC dealings, right? Like OSL is an OTC desk, and you guys have continued to iterate and grow into much more than that. So it's exciting to see. One thing that's really exciting though, and I know that it's been bubbling below the surface for a while, and now you can actually talk about it, is Pow.re. So let's hear it, man. Like, I want to know what you're able to share about what you and your co-founders have been working on at Pow.re.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start. Like, I mean, the genesis, I guess. It's just
Yeah, I mean, I don't. So I'm kind of, I guess I know a little bit more
yeah.
than what's been public. So I'm not sure what I can share, but I'd love to hear how you and the other co-founders got together. The thesis that you guys are working towards,
Yeah.
bringing to fruition, all of it.
Mhm. Okay, so I mean, last year it's almost precisely a year that I actually met my partner Mike Cohen. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better partner, really. The guy just gets things done. Super happy with the way things have been rolling. But there was a miners summit at an event in October. I think it was hosted by Daniel. I'm sorry, I forget his last name. Stand-up guy gets brilliant events done. Mike had come to sell a mine. I had come to buy one, and we just really hit it off. And he said he'd come through to Hong Kong the following week, which he did. 30-minute meeting turned out to be a 3-hour meeting. And I literally booked the next flight out to Montreal. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting in his passenger seat, chewing on this thing called curd, like
Yeah,
dried and beef jerky. It
yeah.
was bizarre. Like, but apparently that's what Canadians do on road trips. So we munching on those things, and Mike just showed me around, like, I think it was 8 different sites, and it just blew me away because I previously just gone to a few facilities actually in China to see something to buy there, but I'm sure this is not like the way everybody in China does business, but it was bizarre because through their HVAC, the fans, like I could
Yeah.
feel mist that's hitting the side of my face as I was just walking through, looking at their sites. And I was like, guys, like, I think you guys have a water leak here. And they're, oh, don't worry about it. It's our cooling system. So it just blew my mind because, like, I mean, it's electrical equipment, and they were literally spraying water to cool it. And apparently that was just BAU. So that was bizarre. But then I also found out that these guys have to ship their miners out when it's come around dry season.
Hmm.
And obviously the base load isn't really that high in some places. And if you keep mining, the villagers are ending up paying like 30x their electricity bill. So that sort of crossed out China because I also realized that they have like 10% damage rate on every trip out there and back. So that's twice a year. You can do the math. It's not really ideal. So essentially, I looked at Iran as well. I won't get into that, but what I eventually realized is, yes, it's an arbitrage against electricity power, but you also have to take into consideration the geopolitical stability because
Hmm.
this is one of the most capital intensive businesses I've ever seen. I've been involved. And it's just ludicrous. I cannot accept the risk profile of sending like millions of dollars of equipment to potentially one of the most riskiest places in the world.
Hmm.
So, I mean, Mike explained that Canada was actually quite cheap. As you probably know, the aluminum paper industry sort of fell down in the late 90s. So
Yes.
Quebec, ample power. And Mike had actually secured the biggest concession from Hydro-Quebec at the time that they were issued. So it was 60 megawatts that were issued for miners. He took down 20 of that. So we were going to tack that on to like a refurbished hydropower plant and whatnot. But the main plant that we were looking at was something in, maybe I shouldn't say the location, but somewhere in Montreal.
Hmm.
Due diligence was done, it looked great, but then after the results, it just, there was a fire hazard. Some of the step down substations were a bit sketch. There was a lot of things that just didn't add up. And the responses we had got from the vendor they just didn't add up either. So we stepped away from that. And thank God we did because prices collapsed after that. And I think that the mine facility is still on the market.
Oh.
So it's been another, 6-7 months, and we've actually been able to secure power. I think we just signed a deal this week actually at sub 2 cents Canadian. And we can have we can scale up basically to another 30. And from there on, it'll just be however much we can fundraise for. So very, very happy about that. But I think the big thing that Mike's really excited about, as I am, is it's the fact that this is just a whole nother vector of arbitrage, be it for you as a miner, or be it for you as a speculator, or be it for you just simply wanting to mine like I did and have just no clue about these ASICs whatsoever. Because I just thought they were like toasters, you know, you plug them in and they're good to go. But there's a lot more to that, and I'm still learning. So there's going to be guys, and particularly, for example, like I'm natively Korean, and in countries like where I come from, we import 100% of our energy. The residential tariffs are, I would say, anywhere between 9 to 13 cents. Yes, you have subsidized, government subsidized power sources. For industrial, it's 7 to 9. Agriculture is 4 to 6. But the moment you use something other than the purpose it's subsidized for, it's illegal. So it just doesn't add up.
Right.
But on the other hand, you know, like as a teenager, if your mom tells you don't do something, it's something you really want to do. The demand from these countries is actually pretty explosive. And you can see that by the number of scams that have just been so easily picking up millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, actually. So what we envisage happening is there's going to be three main participants. The first guys obviously will be the miners, because there is obviously an arbitrage between the cost that they pay to produce a Bitcoin versus the price they can sell on the screen.
Yes.
But you might want to have like an early cash flow problem, just like these guys lend out their coins for operating cash flow, whatever management that they need to do. They might want to take that earlier, in which case a speculator can lift their offer in the screens through this thing that we're going to be building out. And essentially what that works out to do is, I mean, maybe putting some numbers on will help people understand. So if a miner's cost, let's say, just hypothetically, is 10 cents per terahash, they can flip it at 20 cents per terahash in the screen, but they're short on cash, so they need the cash now. They can sell their hash rate while they're still mining, let's say to via BTC. They can essentially have a put option in the screens. So there's no opportunity cost while they're mining. Now, the moment somebody, let's say somebody like sitting in Korea who has no access to power at 3 cents, let alone 1 cent, comes along and he thinks he wants to mine, he can get mining exposure, i.e. buy Bitcoin at a discount to the price in the screen. So as you can imagine, I think the quants who trade anything under the sun, including options that will, basically predict whether Trump gets elected or not. I mean, I don't think it's a big ask. I mean, they're trading sushis too, right? So this is a little bit more structured, I think. But on the flip side,
farming and trading sushi.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, it's just quite exciting to see, because it's a nascent industry, and as you can see with every other commodity that's traded in the world, there's always a clearinghouse. You know, there's we're not really reinventing the wheel. It's just the way things are done. I just think people, I mean, there just hasn't been an iteration. Maybe there has. Maybe it just hasn't been successful, and I haven't heard about it. But I do see that there will be a need for this, because you yourself as a miner would, I'm sure you can agree that as much as we love these mining pools, sometimes the returns that they feed back to you doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, I want to, before we get into the nitty gritty of this, just going high level overview, obviously you have a good background in this. Explain what a clearinghouse is, traditional commodity sense, to anyone who may not know.
So, I mean, so let's say, I don't know, you're like a you're a potato farmer in Idaho, and you know, like you would like to have steady income, as opposed to like a drought coming and destroying your crops, or like having a flood destroying them, whatever. So you can actually buy forwards or futures on the CME for whatever date you intend to sell them, and hedge that delta. Meaning, it doesn't matter what happens to your produce, you can buy like a put option to sell them at whatever price you intend to. The same can apply to the miners. Like, I mean, a lot of things are upside down, like the mining equipment moving in tandem with the pricing and whatnot, but it shouldn't be any different, you know, like, because hash rate is essentially the commodity. And if you have multiple players clear through a central clearinghouse, you can actually calculate. It's very easy to see and basically match up the different, because it's going to be not everybody is going to be mining from the same pool. We will have multiple players coming through and from multiple pools, and we will actually be able to compare the returns. And as a matter of fact, like, there seems to be a lot of demand from these auditing companies as well. and they're looking to basically buy our data because they don't have any third-party independent data sources.
Right.
If we can get this set up, which it will organically grow because our hash rate will clear through this. We have LOIs for up to, I think it was almost 200 petahash from guys that control about 15% of the total network.
Okay.
I'm quite excited to see how this goes because these guys are in extremely cheap renewable energy sources. That's where they're mining from. And the demand that I've seen from the countries that don't have that power, the mining demand is extremely high. So if I can just sort of match that together, I think we can get some magic going.
Well, and I mean, to be clear, this is the coming wave, right? The hash rate derivatives. I mean, on this show, we've covered them a ton, and I don't think there can ever be enough coverage because we're still very early in the process of them getting off the ground. The companies that are doing them now, there are some, right? And then there are others who are working to spin up products that can provide some kind of level of service to this burgeoning sector of the market. I think that it brings a level of legitimacy to mining that I mean, it hasn't existed, right? It's been a super risk on, cavalier, cutthroat industry, and this brings it to a safer place. And I think I mean, right now, and you know this better than anyone, right? You guys have raised some money for power for the facility that you're building. You'll probably continue to raise money. Um, it's tough to get funding
Yeah.
in an industry that's so high risk for the investors.
Right, right. I mean, what's interesting with is like I've spoken to a few players like who would typically migrate to Mongolia and Xinjiang
Hmm.
like, the dry season, and the consensus seems to be like this is just BAU. Like I mean, it depends on how tight your guanxi is with the local power supplier, and some small guys always get wiped out. So I can't really verify that because I'm not there, but at the same time, the small guys will need places to find, and it seems like there is an increasing demand domestically in China to diversify away. I would assume that's probably has some sort of impact from the DCEP that the Chinese government is trying to issue, because if you think about it, if the Chinese government's issuing their own coin, they'll want their people to use that coin as opposed to Bitcoin. So I think that in tandem with the headlines about Mongolia just getting a crackdown, just scared everybody. But I mean, yeah, the trend has been there apparently for some time to just diversify away.
Yeah, it's got to be a tough spot for them, right? The fact that everything can change on the drop of a dime like that is beyond problematic for your business. And a lot of American miners face that in Wenatchee, Washington, years back, right? The Wenatchee government, I mean, basically targeted Bitcoin and crypto mining facilities and started to aggressively raise power rates to the point where, it led to some lawsuits. It put a lot of people out of business. It created a really, really crappy dynamic there. And a lot of those miners were forced to either close or move. So this, this could, and we've talked about this pushing people out of Inner Mongolia. Do you feel like, okay, so if I'm in Inner Mongolia or I'm in China and I'm looking to move my machines elsewhere, am I looking at, I mean, is it Canada? Is it Kazakhstan? Is it Europe? Where do I feel comfortable moving?
So the Kazakhstan miners were just telling me they're on track. I think it was 300 million. I think the headline just this morning. So I spoke to my contact Sarah, and they did actually mention some money coming in from China, 10% about from China and Korea actually as well, 30% thereabouts from Europe, and a lot of it from the other Stan states, despite them trying to compete. I think it's with Kyrgyzstan to be like the mining hub
Okay.
of CIS.
Yeah.
But what is very clear is that nobody's looking at the U.S. For obvious reasons, not least to say the
Wait,
25%
oh,
that you have to pay.
hold. Okay. So other than the 24% tariff, what are the other reasons?
It's just as I think for a Chinese person, like it's there's no there's no upside really because I mean Trump loves China as we can all tell, and if you think about it, like yes. like the Chinese government has forced companies that are coming in to serve the domestic market to force them to have a local technology partner. It's
Hmm.
a nice way to siphon out the technology, really. But
Yeah.
I mean, other ways to put it, like it's the Americans are doing that now too in the land of the free. Like, look at what they're doing with TikTok. Now they're talking about WeChat, Alipay. You know, like I mean, if they start like arbitrarily like just shutting things down as Trump has demonstrated he can very well do,
Yeah.
it's a problem. I think that just political uncertainty as is just too much for them to cope with. And then this the 24% duty just really puts that nail in the coffin. I think that's a general consensus view really at this point.
Yeah. It's this anti. I mean, I guess we could go down that rabbit hole a little bit, but the anti-globalist movement and kind of everything that's going on in the States is really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, my, my childhood and adolescent years, we spent like all of America, their influence was spent basically expanding across the world, making things open. And now to kind of retract all of that, it's been a very interesting thing. And look, I can see both sides of it. Like, I come from a family that's been impacted negatively by globalism, right? Like massively impacted in a negative way by globalism. But I also live in a foreign country, right? Like, I also like I enjoy the life outside of the U.S. as well. So I don't know, man.
Do you know what it else it is with? Like, I mean, I'm thinking about this as we're speaking about this, but it's also the banking rails too, because I don't know if you've had any experience wiring money domestically within
Yeah,
China or Korea or Japan for any Asian country for that matter. It's instant. Like, it's not like that in the U.S. I mean, the SWIFT, like they can literally hold your money hostage for however long they want with no
yeah,
reason given, and it seems like a lot of people have had a bad taste in their mouth, and there's alternatives in Asia, and people are realizing it's not a uh, it's not a committee that makes that decision. It's Trump.
mhm,
He doesn't like you,
yeah,
he shuts you down,
yeah.
and that's not ideal for running a business, especially if you're in the U.S. You know, like I think that's also something that people worry about as well.
Well, I mean, yeah, look, banking sucks everywhere. I think that America is by far the worst of the first world nations. I remember when my now wife, moved to the States 10 years ago, and she had to provide a check for something. It was just like what are you talking about? Like, what am I like? I don't understand this foreign system that you guys have. But yeah, I mean, it's definite that I mean, Bitcoin was clearly created in the United States because Satoshi was just really fucking sick of Wells Fargo. That's my theory.
That's very
But
my
no,
real
dude. Look,
show, man. It's a bit of a shit show that was Wells Fargo. Jeez. Yeah.
so all right, look, man. With power, all right. So you guys are scaling up your facility. You guys
Mhm.
will have that. When does it come online? When are you guys targeting?
Well, yeah, it's well, we have a bunch of sites, but I think the one you're asking about is obviously like the cheapest one we have,
Yes.
1.8. So we will have about 10, just under 8 megawatts by the end of the
Okay.
fourth quarter. Like, I mean, we're thinking October, November. We just took down, I think this was the last batch of the micro BT that we had a bit. So that's being taken down. Phase two, like we're taking down another 20 megawatts. That's by the third quarter of next year. And after that, we essentially have a substation there that's designed for 100 megawatts. So like there's plenty of headroom. And from that point on, like from the way I understand it, I will have to fact check with Mike, my partner, but it's essentially how much we raise. We can just go on and pretty much build it out. So that's sort of what we're working on. And yeah, it's super exciting because I've done the numbers like I think about 1,000 times because it just looked too good to be true. But they work, and as a matter of fact, these S9s that we punched in there, they make money too because power is
Yeah.
so cheap, which was unbelievable. So yeah, very very happy with the project.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys got cheap enough power, S9s, the M20Ss, those things will have some legs for a while. I mean, M20Ss specifically. The problem will be just finding those on the secondary market. Everyone that bought them is still hanging on to them. Nobody wants to get
Right.
rid of those Watts-Miner machines. It's good that
Yeah.
you guys were able to get in on one of the recent shipments.
Yeah.
I heard pre-sales are sold out until the spring, like April of 2021.
There were
So,
some deliveries out November, December, I think, but there wasn't that many. Like
mhm,
maybe 1,000, I think it was that I
that's
ordered.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. hopefully we can see a new player in the hardware game soon. And I know that Strong U announced recently, but a new player that can prove themselves and show solid numbers and have good production quantities, because the demand is there.
It is. Yeah, it
I
really
mean, there's
is.
so many people that want to come online right now. I mean, what's Bitcoin at? 11.6 right now, something like that. 11.4, 11.6.
Yeah.
Profitable, right? For miners, profitable. So yeah. So okay. So when it comes to the derivatives and power, futures, forwards, you guys acting as a clearinghouse, and maybe you can share this, maybe you can't. What's like the first of all, do you think that now is the right time, or do you think we're a couple of years out for these really taking hold?
It's definitely early days, but as I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I try to plug in to all your episodes, and I've noticed that more and more people are talking about this product.
Yeah,
It's when we first started this, like I didn't. There were very few people talking about it, and now it's just like it's not that novel of a thing. Still a niche, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
uh, I don't. While that is true, that I think the interest has picked up. I still think it's a niche product. It's still a very esoteric concept for people to understand. I mean, you as a miner, it comes naturally. You understand it immediately. But somebody who's trying to get down that rabbit hole from the beginning of one mining 101, it takes a while for them to grasp the concept. But I mean, once you grasp the concept, it's like I've yet to meet somebody who's studied Bitcoin through in and out and come out of it saying I don't like this thing. Like everybody converts. And that to me has also been similar to what I've seen with people like looking at the hash rate stuff as well, because the arbitrage is there. And it's much bigger than the basis sometimes that we're seeing on the futures curve. So why wouldn't the arbitrators come through and play around? It's just a no-brainer to me.
I mean, we're seeing some of the contracts already get written, right? So, like, I don't think it's any surprise. They've been on the show a couple of times. BitUda is doing bespoke contracts. There's a lot of people that are building. My my concern is that people who are developing these products, if they're not well capitalized, they're not going to be able to survive long enough to bring these to fruition, because they are niche, right? This is a niche product, and I think that there has to be some level of profitability through
Mm.
other revenue streams. If someone is banking entirely on a derivatives product right now, and especially something if they're looking to do at scale, I don't think it's viable yet. Um,
You know what? I would have to agree. I would agree with that. So, like, I mean, the way we structured it is like we need this to basically clear our hash rate through the Hong Kong as well.
mhm.
Like, I mean, set up our structure in such a way that it's I'm trying to choose the right word here. Tax efficient, I guess, is the right
Yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Good way of
Because
putting it.
yeah, there's double taxation. I mean, look at the listed companies in Canada. Like, there's a reason their profit margins are quite compressed because they have very little wiggle room in terms of what they can do with those coins
Yeah,
and how they pay their taxes. We're not really bound by that restriction, I think, because we have some pretty kick-ass lawyers who are adept at some legal gymnastics. But I mean, it's all within the legal boundaries. Um, and the growth of our mine will contribute to the growth of the hash rate that gets cleared in this clearinghouse because we need it for our product.
sure,
And I think that product will stay alive because the entities that are involved in getting that through to in the form of a Bitcoin to a customer,
yeah,
it'll generate earnings through the way through the subsidiaries, right? The power that's going to be sold will be at a cost plus, and so forth. Every stage along the way, there'll be some profits that will feed in. So while the cash cow for now will probably be the mine, we expect once this thing takes off to be the cash cow as well. So we'll hopefully
sure.
have cash cows to just be riding on.
Well, I mean, look, if you think about it, what you guys are building right now, I mean, Bitcoin mining is great, and the hash rate that's associated is fantastic. Once it's proven, though, it can expand into much, much larger compute markets, right? So I mean, that's an area where I really can't believe hasn't already seen these kind of financial products. I mean, have you given any thought to why traditional compute hasn't been commoditized and there aren't markets that are trading it like this?
It's it's because I probably think that like if you as a company are probably storing some pretty sensitive stuff in the cloud, like every company is right now, you wouldn't want to disclose who you're contracted with, where that
Mm,
where that cloud database is. So everything's under the wraps. It's sort of like trying to get these family offices to come and congregate and get involved in a party. It doesn't happen because they're so secretive. I
Yeah.
think that's the big reason. And the same applies
Interesting.
for Bitcoin miners too, right? Because there's no incentive, at least in countries where that mining is not officially legal, to stick their
Hmm.
head out and say, "Hey, I'm a Bitcoin miner." There's
Right.
absolutely no incentive.
Right.
That's why like there's been no sort of congregation of this hash rate, but that's changing. Like we got listed companies now in all continents. I mean, Europe, I mean, Asia is coming, I guess, the US, North America, but
Yeah.
people are coming above ground. And the more we see of that, I think there will be more people keen to participate in this eventual clearinghouse of a product as well.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, it's a nice hedge. Yes. And I mean, Bitcoin's price, it would be great to think that it's just always going to continue to go up and there's never going to be a need to hedge. But I think the past 2 years and other crypto winners before have shown us that hedging is wise. And there's so many different products that can be born around this. I mean,
Oh yeah.
the transaction fee swaps, the difficulty futures and forwards, the hash rate futures and forwards. I mean, there's just so many different products, and it's all very exciting. I'd never consider the point about compute that you just mentioned, and there being that level of privacy, right? The element of privacy that's needed. I've always just chalked it up to the fact that there just hasn't been an efficient way to price compute, right? But there hasn't been a price per unit that's been established because there's really not that many players, right? So if you're Amazon, why break down pricing when you can just continue to monopolize the space? Like the more information you provide, the more you open it up to competition, right? So
I
um,
mean, as Bitcoin has grown, like in terms of just the trading venues, like I mean, for example, like it's money speaks, money talks,
yeah,
and like, if you see like if you're China and you see Taiwan just 2 hours away, like printing it because they just made Bitcoin legal, or if you're Korea and you see Japan just making it legal and like they're seeing hundreds of millions of dollars of trading volume, which they're taxing by the way, 20% plus capital gains, commissions on the stamp duty. It's money for them. So that's why they're trying to make this legal. And I think mining will be the same thing. Like as more and more people realize, like if you get it right, i.e., the cheap power source and the logistics correctly, and you don't overpay for things, you're actually okay. And to further that thought, there, if you actually boil it down, you as a miner are really bound by two variables in terms of your profitability, because you can't move your mind, lift it and move somewhere else. So you would assume that the price you pay for your costs, be it fixed or OPEX, are quite stable. You can't really change those. But the two things that really determine your profitability are your Bitcoin price, which I call like, it's sort of like the MSRP if you're a manufacturer, right? And then
yep,
the hash rate, which is sort of like, it's a luck factor. You can't really control how many people are mining away from you. But so there's plenty of tools you can use to hedge the Bitcoin price. Like you got tons of venues where you can trade futures, you can write options, you can even write bespoke like structured products there. Like you can get as exotic as you get with some of these boutique shops. But if you then look at hash rate, which is also equally, arguably, if not more important to your profitability, there's no real I mean, you did mention that broker out in, I think it's New Jersey, but Uda, like
yeah.
so I've heard that headline too, that they've been issuing manual hash rate contracts, but it's not common. But I think like the need is there, and if we can just sort of connect the people who need it, I don't see why they will not hedge. It's just you can't have a business that fluctuates in profitability like 50% all the time. And it's for Bitcoin, it's very well possible. So I think as more and more miners become industrial scale, more professional and more institutionalized, they cannot afford to have as volatile earnings streams as I just mentioned. It has to be hedged. And the best way to do it, as the way I see it, is hash rate forwards right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, and I'm excited to see how that continues to grow. Obviously, hash rate being hash rate and our name being what it is, we're always paying attention to this. We do feel like commoditized compute and the power behind the Bitcoin mining network is the most critical thing in the world right now. It's awesome to see how Bitcoin is really shining in this moment. And look, cryptocurrency is shining in this moment. I know a lot of people, especially Bitcoin maximalists, may cringe a little bit when that's said. But it's, in my opinion, all good for Bitcoin, right? Like, get as many people eyes on this space as you can, and then we'll let them determine, which coin deserves the most attention. And I believe that'll all work its way back to Big Daddy Bitcoin, and we'll all benefit from it. So for now, we just want to get them all in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, who knows? Like, Bitcoin might be the Yahoo or the Lycos, right? Like, I mean, as much as the network is difficult to replicate in terms of size and just the sheer number of nodes, you never know. Like, I mean, nobody saw Google come through when the internet launched, right? It could be the
Right.
case. I just find that probability to be extremely low at this point, really. So yeah, I'm right there with you on that point.
Yeah, if Bitcoin is the Yahoo or the Lycos, I may edit that out. I don't want to receive any death threats. No, look, it's funny. I get it. There's billions of dollars of infrastructure that have been put out to support Bitcoin. I do believe it will stand the test of time, but there's a lot of development that needs to continue to occur. There's still the argument of whether it's money or whether it's store of value, and time will tell. For now, I think that one thing is for sure: the mining industry is here to stay. And not only is it profitable to mine, but the other products that are coming up, like you guys are building at Pow.re, are exciting and going to do well to help Bitcoin miners hedge their risk and stay profitable in the long term, whether it's a bull market or a bear market. So hats off to you guys for what you're doing, man.
Thanks, man. It's been a good journey. Hopefully it continues.
It will. We'll timestamp this and we'll come back and talk about it in a year for sure. Probably before that, man. I really enjoy having you on the show, SJ. We'll have to do it again sometime soon, but thank you for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for your time. I was happy to be here, man.
It was a pleasure. And to the listeners and viewers of the Hashrate podcast, thank you guys for tuning into the show. If you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, whatever podcast platform you prefer, leave us a rating and review and help us move up the charts. And if you're watching on YouTube, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so you are made aware anytime we put out new content with Hashrate TV. So for us here at Hashrate, thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you all again very soon. Thanks for watching this episode of Hashrate Podcast, a Hashrate TV production. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more great content like this every day of the week. In addition, feel free to leave a comment below and let us know who you'd like to see on the next episode of Hashrate Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you head over to hashrate.com, you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter, Difficulty Adjustment. Every Wednesday morning, we provide you with the latest news and information on Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and mining. Plus, each week, one newsletter subscriber will be selected at random to receive a free Ledger Nano S cryptocurrency wallet. So go ahead and sign up today. Who knows? You may be the next lucky winner. Want more from Hashrate? Follow Hashrate TV on Twitter. It's the easiest way to keep track of our newest content all in one place. That's at HASHR8_TV. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you very soon. Please remember that all content appearing on this or any other Hashrate channel is strictly for informational and entertainment purposes only. You should not construe any such information as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Consult a licensed financial advisor before investing yours or anyone else's money.